Sister Wife. These chapters are relatively short, so I'm able to film them like pretty much back to back to back. So I'm trying to get through this entire book this week. So for those who are on Goodreads, I think we're finally going to make it to page 29 because the chapters are so short. So yeah, 29. So we are on chapter 4. It's the last chapter in the daughter portion, and it's called No Girl Wants a Story Like That. Spoiler alert, the world didn't end on my 15th birthday. But in my mind, it ended soon after I turned 18. Cody Brown, who is 4 years older than I, entered our church like a storm. He converted to our faith. His parents became involved with my church, while Cody served his 2-year Mormon mission in San Antonio. The more he talked with his parents and spent time with the leaders of our church, the more he felt called to leave the mainstream LDS church and join ours. Soon after he married Mary, who grew up in a polygamous family. On our end, everybody in our church liked him immediately. He led our youth group activities such as hiking and camping, and he could speak about the teachings of our religion in a compelling way. And he was cute, with electric blue eyes and perfect blonde 80s hair. My sister went on a survival trek with the church, and she said her group referred to Mary and Cody as Ma and Pa. You have to meet Cody, my sister enthused. She was right. When I met him at church, we hit it off instantly. I had never met anyone like him. And I love that he was outgoing, adventurous, and funny. Dynamic. I don't toss that word around often, but it suited him. At around the same time, I struck out on my own. At age 18, I started community college and moved into an apartment with 2 roommates. That didn't work out as well as I'd hoped. We were all church girls, with one being a cousin and the other probably also being a cousin, because the family tree in a polygamous church is more of a weeping willow than an oak. Everybody's related through a mom or a second mom. The new apartment was so close to home, so I could hang out with my family, but I still felt independent. Almost. One of my roommates insisted on knowing where I was at all times. You need to check in, she said. Let us know where you are. Nope. I won't be doing that, I remember saying. I don't want to check in. We spent most of our time together anyway. When I wasn't with them, I was with people from my church or at my parents'. It's not like I was meeting strange men on the internet. That would come much later. Within a few months, it became too controlling, so I moved out. I moved back in with my family for a bit, and then I moved into an apartment with a girlfriend from our church, which I loved. We were in choir, we were in plays together, and it seemed like we headed to the church building for an activity almost every night. She was much more popular than I was, so she always had something going. Sometimes I told her I needed to stay home to study, just to have time to be on my own, even though I loved hanging out with her. In college, I took a public speaking class, and it changed my personality completely. I loved telling stories or explaining how things worked, and I enjoyed the challenge of engaging people through a joke or a shocking statement. I became outgoing, built friendships, even went to parties. I still didn't get close to anybody, but I had a blast, and that year of self-esteem led directly to Sister Wives. My roommate knew Cody and liked him. My mom knew Mary because she had been in kindergarten with my brother Phil and had been to the house. I was close with both Cody and Mary because of our youth group activities. They moved to Wyoming where Cody's family lived, but I kept in touch, often talking with Cody on the phone, especially after my world crashed in a way that hadn't been predicted by church leadership. My mom left my dad when I was 19. That shook me hard because I didn't know she wasn't happy. She was done with religion and she didn't love my dad. I hadn't seen anything but an adorable, loving relationship. But if I'd been paying attention to the lessons she taught us as children, I would have understood the signs had been there for much of my life. When she left my dad, she also left the church. Before she left, she taught us the Book of Mormon was an incredible book, and Captain Moroni served as an example of everything I wanted in a husband. He was brave, strong, and a leader. He held a banner of liberty and motivated his army to serve for justice. I loved that guy. While Mom taught us that ours wasn't the only religion, she said it was the only religion right for us. That is what you were born into, so this is what God meant for you, she would say. This was the rock my life had been built on. When she left, I realized it must have all been lies. And I still lived with her. Would she be there? She started dating a man named Wayne, and I felt angry at her for dating right away, and I didn't know what to do with her in a relationship with someone besides my dad. I didn't trust her and I didn't like her, this woman who had taught me to love everyone, who had ensured my childhood had been safe and fun. I moved back in with my dad and I tried to figure myself out. I rebelled by becoming more religious. My other mom, Aunt Susan, is more proper and I emulated that. I trusted her, I became more involved with the church, and I developed strong ideas about chastity. That would play out awkwardly on my wedding day. I called Cody and told him about the divorce. "What are you going to do?" he asked. I told him I was struggling, I was devastated, just spinning and wondering about my religion and why I hadn't seen any sign of trouble. He was supportive and kind. "I think you need to spend some time figuring out what you want for your future," he told me. "Whether you want to stay in the church, whether you want to go with your mom, you need to make that decision." I knew Cody was a good person and a good man. I loved his charisma and his maverick attitude. This idea that he didn't have to do things the same way everyone else did them. He wasn't afraid of anything, and he did what he thought was right, rather than what the priesthood leaders thought he should do. He tried to think things through on his own, rather than taking someone else's word as gospel. As he helped me through my parents' divorce, I watched his relationship with Mary, and I thought he would be a good husband. When I thought about how he had been with our youth group, I knew he would be a great dad. He was easy to fall in love with. But one day, Cody called me and said, "I'm getting married again. It's Janelle." "Wait, who?" Janelle and I had been some at the same parties, but we had never met. The news bummed me out, both because I thought Cody, Mary, and I were friends, and they hadn't told me, though it's not unusual for these things to happen quickly in our community, and because I was crushing on Cody. But it didn't break my heart. If he took a third, it could be me. I didn't want to be a second wife because then I'd put a wedge in an established relationship. I'd known since I was 17 that I wanted to be a third wife because the family would have worked through all the kinks as they brought in the second wife. What could go wrong? I thought I would have two sister wives who would become my best friends, or at least would help me become a better person. In church we learned we could be monogamous, but that it would be so much better to live plural marriage. And because we had been born into that church, we had an opportunity that most people didn't get. We would have been exalted in heaven for living by God's true intentions our whole lives. When you live plural marriage, you get to live in the celestial kingdom and be with God and Jesus for eternity. Who wouldn't want that? I would also live with my husband and sister wives for all eternity. Them and my 10 siblings and my dad and my 2 moms. That hadn't worked out with mom leaving dad, but everything else would surely fall in line with my version of God's plan. As it turns out, falling in love with somebody who already has 2 wives is complicated. We couldn't date. I mean, it's not cool to date a married man because he's married. From the outside, I'm sure it doesn't make sense, but we saw marriage as sacred, and you don't want to disrespect that sacred relationship by flirting with another woman. It's inappropriate, just as it would have been in a monogamous relationship. Not only would Mary and Janelle need to approve of our courtship, Cody would have to get permission from my father and the church. He couldn't do any of that until I instigated it. Typically, a woman lets her dad know she's interested, and then he makes inquiries. But Cody and I had been hanging out as friends for about 3 years. When I was 21 and Cody was 25, I said, "Of all the guys I know, I would just as soon marry you." Subtle, huh? He took it as a proposal. He talked with my dad, who adored Cody. If my dad wouldn't have arranged my marriage, he would have picked Cody, and he told me. I thought my mom was excited too. Cody could be so charming. I, of course, knew Mary, but I didn't meet Janelle until just before we went to talk with the church leaders, aka my grandpa and his brethren. She was so sweet about the whole thing. The church leaders approved, and we moved forward with our 3-month courtship, which was an awful like and had been hanging out for 3 years. I wanted to remain chaste. For me, that meant no kissing until we were married. One evening, Cody asked me to sit on my mom's couch. My sister ran as he came in with a romantic proposal. "I guess I should ask if you'd marry me," he said. "Be still my heart." "Yes," I said, "I'll marry you." At the time, it was all I thought I needed. There was no point wishing for anything different because I did what I felt was right. Still, even though he'd proposed to 2 other women, I expected something. Moonlight, snow, a ring, something. "No girl wants a story like that," I told him. Soon after, on a pretty night, Cody looked at the moon. "This is a better setting," he said, before asking me again if I would marry him. I smiled and said yes. He had a claw ring for me, and I had a better story. And that is the end of the daughter portion of this book. We're going to go on to the sister portion of the book later. See you later. Bye.